Hello and welcome into the Ultras on TS. As the newest addition to True Sports TV, we are your source for soccer talk on this platform. Currently doing it here through Zoom as our studio is set to open up. I also find it's a nice way to ease you viewers into this kind of system that we're working with, and a cool way for us lads to not be screaming at each other on our first ever episode. I don't know if you guys will agree with me.
I would agree.
I'm Jordan Kahn. I'm Jordan Kahn alongside my Ultras analyst Jeff Wall, Josh Piercy, and Kurt Black. Fellas, we struggled without football for barely 3 weeks, if that. Now, the Euros was getting cancelled earlier in 2020, obviously with the coronavirus. It's going to come back in 2021. For me, it didn't take as big of a toll as I thought it would take because we had football consistently. Are you enjoying the fast turnaround of one season ending and the other one starting so quickly, or would you have preferred a Euros 2020?
I personally am a fan of the quick turnaround. Like, I don't think, of course, I'm not one of the athletes on the team, but they pretty much had a break, an off season. There was 3 or 4 months there where there was no football being played. So yeah, it's very quick. There's not been as many transfers, right, because of that. But I don't see why they couldn't just step right back into the season. And they need to do this so the next season doesn't get delayed and so much after that, right? So no complaint. I love it.
Yeah, I got no complaints really either, to be completely honest with you. I mean, I obviously feel bad for the players. I always think that they really do get way too much football. They don't get any time with their families. But, I think with the world being with the way it is for them, I'm sure that they want to get back doing what they need to do, get back into some sense of normalcy. So can't complain too much. I'm a little disappointed I didn't get to see, God's team, Manchester United, today. But, it's okay. Good things come to those who wait. So.
Wow, big yikes. God's team, eh? Well, I mean, in one way, I can't get enough football, so the more the merrier. But, we really are going to miss the Euros this year. And there's a lot of football coming up for a lot of teams, and having no break, it could result in some injured players, some knocks here and there. But in the long run, I mean, bring it on. I know Jose Mourinho is not very happy about having no preseason. I've got a few choice words to say to him as well, but I'll leave it there.
No, we're actually going to pick it up there, actually.
All right.
Let's talk about that. Carlo Ancelotti's Everton side beat a team of a reality TV show. Tottenham Hotspurs. They beat Tottenham Hotspur. This loss to Everton signaled the first time ever that a Jose Mourinho side has lost on the opening day of the season. Josh, you're our resident sports Spurs pusher, unfortunately. So with literal drama on the screen being shown in the background incidents and finishing off last season kind of underwhelmingly, what's going to drive you crazy this season as a Spurs supporter? When do you start to worry as a Tottenham fan, if at all?
Well, I mean, you said it there. It's Jose's first time losing the home opener. It's also the first time Tottenham has lost to Everton at home in 12 years. When you think Spurs can't get any more Spursy, they pull up another gear and just impress me with complete lack of effort once again. I mean, there's a bunch of different angles to take this from. Everton, first of all, like you said, Ancelotti, he's getting into his second season at Everton now. He's starting to really settle into the team. There's no doubt that he's one of the best managers of his generation. And if he can get the right guys doing the right things, Everton can certainly finish in the top 7, top 8 this season, no doubt. I think Richarlison is a tidy player. If he can kind of find his finishing touch, he can probably score at least 15 goals this year. From what I've seen today, James Rodriguez looks like maybe that guy that Everton's been searching for so long, that kind of attacking midfield option. He definitely has the pedigree. And like we know, he plays even better when he's kind of that central guy. But then from the Tottenham perspective, it's just, I think that the best way to explain it is, if you look back 3 or 4 years ago at the Tottenham midfield, it was Christian Eriksen, Moussa Dembele, and Eric Dyer. These are 3 guys with 3 distinct roles in the team. With Eric Dyer, who was the destroyer, he had the freedom to go out and make all the tackles he wanted to, and he was pretty good at it back then. Moussa Dembele, who was probably the most underrated box-to-box midfielder in the Premier League at the time. And Christian Eriksen, who can pick out any pass that he wants. And right today, it was Harry Winks, Højbjerg, and after Dele Alli was subbed off, Moussa Sissoko. It's 3 guys who are essentially playing the same position to varying degrees of effectiveness. And today it wasn't effective at all. So when it comes to transition play, if it's not counterattacking on the wings, there's from defense to attack, there's nothing. And Jose said something the other day about how we don't have a striker and they're not sure if the team's going to get it. I think that's maybe third or fourth on the list of things we need to address. And the thing that I think we need to address right now the most is the setup of the team, the midfield, which is the scariest part because that's the one thing that we've actually invested in over the last 2 seasons. So to tell you the truth, yeah, I'm a little bit worried about this season.
You know what, Josh? I mean, now you've sort of felt a little bit of my pain having to deal with Jose Mourinho, slandering your players, just making things absolute hell. And you know what? It's going to be a tough season for you. I'm not going to lie. So I just want to get you ready for that. But, I mean, I'm sure you've already had a little bit of a taste anyway. But it's weird. You know, I actually do believe Jose still has something in him. But it is so weird to see him just kind of fall apart at the seams. I know this is not a usual year for him. He would probably love to get at least 1 or 2 transfers in. Saying he needs a striker just seems like he's trying to push Harry Kane's buttons or something like that. But, you know, I want to take it a little bit over to Everton, though. Like I said this just about every single year to all my friends who know me. I always think Everton, they're finally coming. This is their year. But now they got a 3-time Champions League winning manager. They got James Rodriguez, who actually looks like he's found a bit of a home. All this talent there. Maybe, just maybe, with a very shaky Manchester United, they can finally crack the top 4. That's one of my predictions going into this season. I think Everton can finally do it.
Oh, man, I definitely don't agree with you. Spurs should be beating Everton, especially at home, every single day of the week, man. The Toffees are pretty good on paper, but up front they've got, you know, number 9, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who, you know, he had scored a decent goal today, but I don't really think he's much of a pedigree of a player at all. Their defense certainly isn't much to write home about. Jordan Pickford can have a good game 1 or 2 times, but I don't know. Top 4 is a little bit much, Jeff.
You know something I was thinking? I looked at a stat today that said James Rodriguez was the first player since Alexis Sanchez to record more than, I think, 6 chances created in a single match on his debut. So who knows what he still has left to offer. Maybe it's just his first match and he was on fire, but it's going to be an interesting storyline to watch Everton throughout the season. Now let's move over to the other team in Merseyside who also got a win. Last year's Premier League champions Liverpool had a thriller in the opening match of the season, narrowly beating Leeds United 3-2. And Marcelo Bielsa's boys at 3, all the way up until the 88th minute when Muhammad Salah completed his hat-trick with his second penalty of the match. And the Reds obviously won 4-3. But this does prompt the question, if it takes a Mo Salah hat-trick and 2 goals from the penalty spot to beat a newly promoted side, does that mean Leeds could be the underdog team to be reckoned with this year? I think of examples like Wolves 2 seasons ago and Sheffield last year, who were, you know, fighting for the top 6, not top 8, something like that, Europa League positioning. Are Leeds that caliber, or is it too early to tell?
I think it might be a little bit of both. You know, it's one game in. We can't really anoint them much at this point, and they lost at the end of the day. But we've seen some clubs come up these last few years who did splash the cash once they were promoted, and the success wasn't there. Fulham is a recent example. But Leeds have spent a lot of money, and that goal to tie the game late by Klitsch was amazing. It was a thunderous strike. I was impressed with everything. And if you can hold your own with the arguably top 3 team in Europe, if not top team in Europe, it's an impressive start for Leeds, but they got to keep it up.
Well, I think that, Jordan, the list that you talked about, Wolverhampton and Sheffield and now Leeds, you know, these were all teams that were in the championship, well managed. They had an identity that they played with all season long. They come up into the Premier League, and they don't fear clubs like Liverpool. They don't fear clubs like Chelsea, and they play without fear, and they just attack. And it's something that those teams hadn't seen before. And I think that there was a case of that again today or yesterday with Liverpool. I am worried for them because I think that I'm not sure their squad is quite strong enough to you know, be that aggressive and pick up points, you know, every single week. But they're definitely really fun to watch, and I'm really excited for the Marco Bielsa project. They're in North England.
Well, I love me some Bielsa, so I mean, I'm happy to see him in the Premier League. We'll see if he pulls, a Marseille where he just leaves all of a sudden. We'll see what happens there. I'm not sure if that was Marseille or Lazio, but either way, drama is abound, that's for sure. But one thing, though, I want to note is we're talking about Wolves and we're talking about Sheffield. Those are two sides with, I'm not going to say, like conservative per se, but they're very solid defensively. We know that they can, get a few points once they, get their goal and they get that lead, they know to like shut down the shop. Right. And I don't think that's really in Bielsa's DNA, but that's what we love about him. So I don't know if they can maybe reach, let's say, a Europa League spot, but I definitely don't expect them to go down. That's for sure.
Yeah, I would say with Bielsa's style of coaching, maybe he's not going to spy in the Premier League like he was accused of doing in the Championship last year, but I have a feeling that Leeds will be fine. We have to move on to a side that had a disappointing end to the season last year in the Premier League, and that's Leicester, and how the Vardy party just does not stop. It must be all the Red Bull. That's what I think. Jamie Vardy bagged 2 unstoppable penalties against newly promoted side West Brom, as Leicester would win 3-0 convincingly in that match. The brace also saw Jamie Vardy surpass the goal tally of Didier Drogba in 42 fewer matches, and that's 105 goals to Drogba's 104. Jeff, you were pretty adamant about this in our pre-talk. You think Vardy is a top 5 striker in the Premier League? Yes or no? In the era, since 1993.
It's a tough question, but when you look at it, it's very difficult because, you got guys like Drogba and a lot of others through the years, Ruben Nistelrooy, Robin van Persie even. They've all had really, really good, a really good cast around them, right? Vardy hasn't always consistently had that cast, but he's always been consistent in putting goals in the back of the net. That's what he's been good at this entire time. However, I would put him in my top 5. I'm not sure I put him number 1, not quite yet. I really do think, and I wouldn't say it's Wayne Rooney because I think he's just too good of a player to peg him as simply a striker. He's just much more than that. But I would say, for me, I know a lot of Manchester United fans will get mad at me for this, but I think Sergio Aguero is literally the best striker we've ever seen in the Premier League era. I mean, like he comes up with the most miraculous goal you will ever see in the sport. It literally lifts a fan base out of their deep, deep struggles. And I have to give him props for that. He's also just been like Mr. Consistency throughout his time. And that's another thing when it comes to all these other players is just their consistency, other than maybe Alan Shearer. There's not much I can knock Sergio Aguero for. And another thing too, he stayed pretty healthy versus Harry Kane, who just has not.
I think that the funny thing about Vardy is, and I think one of the reasons that he doesn't get some of the respect that he deserves is he's done it all on a pretty small team, and he's always kind of played on smaller teams. When you go down the list of the greatest Premier League strikers of all time, most of them, aside from Alan Shearer and Matt Letizia, have been playing on those top 6, not even Tottenham, the top five clubs. So that would be the one thing where you think maybe he wouldn't be rated as highly just in people's minds. But, man, he certainly is incredible, and he's consistent, like Jeff said. He doesn't have the flash of some of the other guys like Thierry Henry and Sergio Aguero, like you said. And there's certainly some guys who I think have more impact on a team, somebody like an Eric Cantona. But he certainly belongs to be up and around the top of that list.
No, I agree with both of you. You mentioned it, Jeff, Drogba. He's always right up there at the top of any Premier League strikers. And you look at his goal numbers, frankly, they're not even that impressive. So if he's in your top 5, then Vardy 100%. Maybe he's not the sexiest option, but he puts the ball in the net when his team needs it, and he's won the Prem. He's definitely the GOAT of Leicester, that's for sure.
Let's move on to a different country, a different league. Jamie Vardy loves his banter, and there was plenty of banter in this match we're going to talk about. In Ligue 1, PSG suffered back-to-back losses. They lost 3 all last season, but this season they've already lost 2. So Neymar played in this one after missing the first match due to coronavirus, and he actually won't play in the next one because he was one of 5 players to see a red card and 14 yellows at the end of the match. There was a brawl. What were your thoughts on this Royal Rumble? And is Thomas Tuchel in danger of losing his job, even though this team just made it to a Champions League?
I think he definitely is in trouble. This team, it's a quick turnaround again, right? Maybe it's a Champions League hangover. They just reached a level that this team has been trying to reach for so many years. So maybe they are a little high on their bridges right now and they're not taking it as seriously. But if they really appreciate their coach, they really need to start pulling for him, because we know in PSG, or with that team, there's not a long leash for their coaches. They've had great coaches, but if you don't give them success, you're out the door. And I just keep thinking about Max Allegri, still not having a job, just out there relaxing. He's a guy with Champions League success, and I think he'd be a really good fit in Paris.
I think I just have this issue when it comes to clubs just being so quick to get rid of managers as if they're the problem. Look, I think PSG is a super talented side. They just made it to the final pretty much off of the will of Neymar. I don't think he's gotten enough credit for what he's done over this last couple of months now. Rough start to the season, but let's be honest here. Do we honestly think that every other Ligue 1 team is going to be able to keep up with them? Are they going to be able to avoid 5, 6, 8 losses like they never have been able to? I don't think so. But I also just think that the circumstances are just absolutely wild. And I think PSG's board should keep that in mind, because Thomas Tuchel is a fantastic manager. And if they let him go, well, guess what? Then he's just going to be knocking you out of the Champions League. So it's really not him. Sometimes, other teams want to win too, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that the situation at PSG right now is such a headache. I'm glad I'm not in charge of that team. But I don't know. Yeah, like Jeff said, I think that letting go of Tuchel right now is definitely a mistake. And 2 more losses, and they'll definitely get rid of him. There's no way that he keeps his job for 2 more losses. But the thing about Ligue 1 is they can lose 4 games and probably still run away with the title with relative ease. They certainly have the talent on that team for it. But, yeah, I mean, the handbags after the game today, the throwing punches and kicks, and I think I've seen a headbutt or 2. Yeah, the quotations on the punches and kicks, maybe they weren't quite of the hockey caliber they were used to there, Kurt. But it was, pretty shocking. And I think that, for all that we talk about Thomas Tuchel being a good coach in terms of setting up his team and tactics, you definitely have to be able to step in and be a leader when your team is frazzled like they are right now. And we'll see if that's also part of what he brings to the table.
I'll say this. In the manager before, I believe it was Unai Emery, there was lots of issues with the whole squad, and they just were not obedient whatsoever. So I guess maybe Tuchel's not the best manager necessarily, but he's doing something right. And the team, for the most part, seems to have a good group of personalities, meshing together there, which for the most part, again, has led to a lot of success. And I mean, I just think it's tough to say, like, let's get rid of Tuchel just because he doesn't win the ultimate prize. He's gotten PSG farther than any other manager has gotten them. And I think regardless, PSG should at least give him 1 more year after that, no matter what happens.
Okay, we're going to fly over to Serie A really quickly as we're getting to the end of our show. There was some manager concerns over the summertime, and they got sorted very fast. Juventus always seem to do good business in the off-season on the pitch, but they used a former player to class up the sideline instead. Kurt, you love the old lady you're wearing the kit right now. What do you think about Andrea Pirlo taking on the role? What are your expectations for this season?
I'm a massive fan. When the news came out, I was thrilled about it. And it was interesting, a few days prior, Pirlo had been named the U23 coach, which I found super, super interesting. And it definitely was just getting him in the door before kicking Sarri out. I think he's the perfect fit for this team. We talk about how many egos and a lot of overconfident people are on Juve that think they can do it all on your own. Ronaldo, I love you, but that's true. He's the type of guy that can walk in there and they're all going to give him the respect. He's the maestro. He's going to be respected the moment he walks in the door. Tactically, we're going to have to see. But all I know is he is one of the most brilliant footballing minds I've ever seen play the game. And if he can put that on the sidelines, I'm very excited. I think the biggest thing that's still to come down the pipeline is whether Luis Suarez will be joining the team. Juve do really need a striker, especially to replace Higuain. Ugh. And I might not like the person in Luis Suarez, but the player, I can't deny, and I think he would be tremendous.
Yeah, Luis Suarez going to Juve after Barcelona and before that Liverpool would be an interesting career path for himself and make for a very interesting time at Juve alongside some of the best players in the world and one of the best midfielders as his coach. We have to do this quiz now, and in the topic of great career paths, I'm going to list a number of clubs that this one player went to, and let's see if you guys can guess it. There will be, punishment for the two that lose next time, but this time we're just going to run right through it. So this player started his career in 1995 at Cruzeiro, went to PSV Eindhoven, then went to Barcelona, then went to Inter Milan.
Ronaldo.
Yes, you got it. Easy.
Damn.
Easy peasy.
I sucked at it last episode, so I needed to redeem myself here.
Yeah. Okay, well, I obviously have to do a better job because I need to win some of these too. Boys, that's all we have time for on this first episode of the Ultras on TS, but the football will never stop, meaning that we'll be back next week. So, for now, we'll catch you on the next episode of the Ultras on TS.